welcome back to my channel, Beautiful Minutia. If you're new here, my name is Tiffany and welcome to another week of Vlogmas. If you hear a cat meowing in the background, she's fine. She's just really loud this morning for whatever reason. But I wanted to pop on. It's Sunday morning, about ready to go to church, but I wanted to share with you what my reading plans are for this week. I actually finished a lot of things or decided to DNF some things last week. You can watch last week's vlog if you're curious about what those are. So I'm not really doing as much continuing this week. I am reading The Hobbit still. I'm still in the process of the autobiography of Santa Claus, and I've kind of like fallen out of that book. I kind of wasn't enjoying it very much, which I talked about in my last vlog as to the reasons why. It just feels like a little weird and nonsensical to me at this point, I guess. So I may go back to it as my audiobook, but I might not, because I have some other books here I either want to start or want to finish by the end of the year. I am going to be finishing Attack on Titan Volume 7 this week. I'm going to talk with my friend Christy about it. We're supposed to get together this week, and it's my last volume that I currently physically have of Attack on Titan. I've been borrowing them from a friend in real life, and I will borrow the next set. So I want to finish that one. I did start it, but I haven't finished it. So I want to finish that. I want to start The Remains of the Day, and this is part of my read project, but it's one that I've heard talked very highly about. So I really want to give this one a fair try, because last year I read Never Let Me Go and had very mixed feelings, but I've heard that this is totally different in tone, in subject matter, all of those kinds of things. I meant to start it, I think last week? No, the week before. And I just got so enthralled with The Memory Keeper's Daughter that I ended up not starting it. So starting this one for sure this week. If I'm hating it, I'm giving myself the permission to totally DNF it, because it is a read project book. Then I have two big books that I would like to finish by the end of the year. I don't think I can finish both. So I'm just gonna try to see whichever one I really end up wanting to finish. So one is Don Quixote, which I started reading earlier this year. I got about 40% of the way through and soft DNF'd it because it was just feeling repetitive. I wasn't enjoying it as much. But I recently finished a King Arthur book with my daughter and I, Howard Pyle's version of King Arthur. We read it for school, and it contextualized a lot of the things that Don Quixote was doing in this book that I'm like, oh, I didn't even know, because I just didn't know as much about like Knights of Chivalry. And so that made me want to come back to this and give this another try. I was going to give it another try at some point anyway, but I was like, I probably won't finish it this year and I'll just get back to it another time. So I really want to finish it this year. That would be really nice. So I have the audiobook for that. So that might be what I switch over to. My other really large book, though, that I don't think I'm going to finish by the end of the year, but who knows, Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. This is the final book that is out in the Stormlight Archive. I think the 5th book in the arc. I think it's the final book in the arc. I think this is going to be 10 books total, but I think it's going to be 2 5-book arcs. So this is book 4. I've only read the prologue, and I'm reading it with Whitney Drew. She's also only read the prologue because she's also trying to finish a big classic book by the end of the year. And so we've just kind of not been continuing with it right now. So this may not even get read this week at all. I'm just throwing this on here for an option because I'm going to let my mood kind of take me. I also have a few more read project books that I kind of want to try a chapter of and see how that goes. So those are my plans for this week. And I don't have as much Christmassy stuff planned this week. I think I'm done with my Christmas baking. I've wrapped pretty much all my gifts. I have a couple little things to get. I need to go to the post office and mail some stuff tomorrow. But I finished all my Christmas cards, have them labeled. I've mailed out the ones for family. I still have some friend ones I need to mail out. So yeah, so that's kind of what I'm working on Christmassy stuff this week, but I did do a lot of stuff this past week in preparation. So in some ways it's gonna be less busy than normal, but we do have some church stuff going on and just, you know, normal everyday stuff. I've been trying to catch up on cleaning my house because that has really suffered with busyness and sick animals and sick me as well for the past like month. So I've really been tackling a lot of projects, and that's probably going to be what I'm going to be working on a lot this week, and preparing my bullet journal for next year, because I want to do like a walkthrough of my annual stuff for my book journal for my 12 days of Christmas. So I'm going to be doing a lot of filming for the 12 days of Christmas this week also. I guess that's what I'm going to be doing. It'll be busier than normal in some ways, like in planning and content creation, but less busy in terms of actually going places. Anyway, those are my plans for the week, and I will check in and let you know how it's going. Hello, it is now Friday, so the week is finished. Kind of a hot mess right now because I have been cleaning a lot of today and just getting last minute Christmas stuff together, because I have my sister and brother-in-law coming into town tomorrow to celebrate Christmas with us. So just trying to get last minute stuff done so that way I can just relax and enjoy spending time with them instead of doing a million things. Anyways, so I wanted to come on here because I have finished a couple of books, and then I have one that I'm still working my way through. Unfortunately, I did not pick up either of the big books, and I'm like, oh yeah, I want to finish these by the end of the year. Have not picked up Don Quixote or Rhythm of War. However, I have picked up The Remains of the Day. I'm not very far into it. It's super slow moving, and there are moments where I'm enjoying it and moments where I feel a little bit bored, to be honest. I like the reflectiveness of the book, but I don't feel like there's gonna be much of a plot to it, basically, is how I feel at this point. It kind of gives me the same kind of vibes as Downton Abbey, which I've actually only ever watched one episode of. And then it also kind of gives me A Gentleman in Moscow vibes, where it's very like reflective of his time over decades of service to this man. So I think that I could end up potentially still like really loving this, even though there are moments where it feels like it's dragging. I am not even close to ready to give up on it, because I'm not hating it. Even the moments that feel like really slow, I'm not hating it. I just am kind of like, okay, like where are you going with this? So there have been moments that I've really enjoyed, especially some of his like reflections on his dad and the service that his dad's had and some of the stories that he's told. I will say, like, I found an audiobook for this one and I don't like it on audio. When I'm listening to it on audio, I don't care. I'm enjoying the writing a lot more reading it physically. And normally if I'm liking it physically, I also like it on audio, but that's not the case with this one, which is interesting. I also started and finished Candide by Voltaire, which was on my Reader Read project. It's one that I see referenced all the time. I see Voltaire referenced all the time in Russian literature and French literature. I want to read something by him, and I had Candide on my shelf, and I was like, oh, this is so short. It's like 100 pages or less than 100 pages. And I kind of hated this, to be honest. It's a satire, and I understand what Voltaire is trying to do. He's trying to come up against this like optimistic philosophy of like everything happens for a reason. So it's about this guy, Candide, who is being taught by a philosopher professor named Pangloss that like everything happens for a reason. So they're going somewhere, and something happens where there's like a shipwreck and people die, and Pangloss is basically like, well, the ocean was created for this, to like swallow up these people. If the ocean didn't exist, then this couldn't have happened. So that's why the ocean exists. And so I get what Voltaire's trying to do. He's trying to poke holes in that. He's trying to make fun of that kind of stuff. But this is like, considering how old this is, it's like really, really raunchy. I was so surprised. There's like a lot of sexual content. There's a lot of sexual assault in it. And it's not like incredibly graphic or anything like that because of the time. But he's talking about how like everyone is actually secretly miserable and everyone's life feels like they're worse than everyone else's, and everyone's sharing about their stories about how bad everything is. And like the stories just keep getting more and more ludicrous and outrageous and like one-upping each other with how bad their lives are. But like some of this stuff is like really disturbing, but written in such a way that it's supposed to be funny because it's satirical. And I did not think it was funny. I was just like, this is so like gross. Like, this is not funny. It kind of reminds me of like Rasselas meets Don Quixote in terms of like the satire, but like Rasselas was, they're on this quest to find like what's really gonna make people happy, and that's essentially what the book is about. And I feel like Candide is similar, where it's like, do things really happen for a reason? Will people actually be happy when they get what they want and they think they get what they think is actually going to make them happy? Does it actually make them happy? And it like shows multiple different people. I mean, we're mostly focused on Candide, but other people where he's like, oh, well, they'll be happy once they have this, and then they have the thing and they're not happy. They're still really miserable. And it's the same kind of thing with him. And so I get what Voltaire was trying to do, and I am totally open to reading more Voltaire because I did feel like his writing was witty and did have humor in it, and the stuff at the beginning with Pangloss was really funny to me, but like the things then that he tried to say were humorous or tried to make just like utterly ridiculous, I just didn't jive with. And so I kind of really did not enjoy reading this book, but because it was so short, I'm like, I'm gonna finish it. Voltaire is so influential on so many authors and in multiple like European cultures, and I just need to read it. So I finished it and I'm glad it's over. Lastly, I did finish The Hobbit. Oh, it made me so happy. This book from start to finish. I just love it. It's been a few years since I've read this one, but it's been much longer since I've reread Lord of the Rings, which I'm reading next year with my Patreon. And so we decided to read The Hobbit in December and kick off our Lord of the Rings with that. And I just love every second of this story. It's just glorious. And towards like the second half of the book, I did start alternating audiobook because I was working on my reading journal for 2024. And so while I was just, you know, tracing lines and doing that kind of stuff, I was listening to The Hobbit, and I didn't realize that I could get the version that Andy Serkis narrates, and it's phenomenal. Like, I will never listen to any other person narrate The Hobbit because it's just not worth it. His is so good. And obviously his Gollum is perfection because he is Gollum. But he does like different voices for every single character. Like, it sounds like it is a full cast audiobook. That's how good of a job he does doing voices for every single character. And it's just phenomenal. Oh my goodness. I loved it. And rereading this, like, there were so many parts that it was so wonderful to reread, and it just felt like so homey and nostalgic, which is interesting because I didn't really read The Hobbit very much as a child. I read Lord of the Rings a bajillion times, and I might have read The Hobbit maybe once, and then I've read it with my daughter. So this is only like the third time I've ever read The Hobbit, but it still feels just so homey and cozy and nostalgic. But there's so many parts that are so funny, and I forgot how funny they are, especially, you know, some of the interactions with like the trolls that happen, and even with some of the goblin stuff that happens in Gollum, and just some characters where the interactions they have actually end up being kind of funny, although they're also pretty tense at times as well. But I just absolutely just loved this story and experiencing it again. And I feel like I relate a lot to Bilbo because like I am a homebody, but then I also do like going out on adventures. So both of those sides are definitely present in me. Although I would say that I'm probably like 65–70% homebody. Well, maybe more like 75% homebody. And then like 25 to 30% of just adventuring and enjoying that kind of stuff. Anyways, I'm gonna wrap up this vlog here, and I will not have another vlog for the last week of December. I was going to, but I am having the 12 days of Christmas starting on Christmas Day. And so I already had lots of plans of lots of things I wanted to talk about, TBRs for next year, and favorites lists, and ranking lists, and suggestions that some of you had for me as well. And so there really just wasn't very much room to try to squeeze a vlog in for the last week of December. So I'm just not gonna do that. But you will be seeing my face an awful lot starting on Christmas Day all the way through, I guess, January 6th will be where I stop. And so yeah, so I would love to hear from you in the comments down below. How has your reading been going in December? What have you been reading? Have you read any of the books that I've been reading this week? And if so, what were your thoughts? I always love chatting with you guys. And I hope that all of you have an amazing Christmas and a wonderful celebration. And I will see you again soon.